So, we spend 10 years in the tunnel of love, and once we're out, something terrible happens?
That's right.
But you won't tell me what that is?
I won't.
Okay, John. It was really nice talking to you. Definitely one of the more interesting conversations I've had. But I cannot get serious with someone if I know it's just gonna end in tragedy.
By definition, don't all relationships end in tragedy?
Yeah. Guess you have a point.
And will you have dinner with me tomorrow night?
Fuck it. Why not?
Hello and welcome to another episode of Watching Watchmen. I am Joe.
And I'm Jimbob.
And together we are one drink in. If this is your first time joining us, we do a weekly, bi-weekly podcast. Bi-weekly? Twice a week?
Yeah.
At least? Yeah.
Semi-weekly?
Semi-week? Yes. A couple times a week. Recap of the show Watchmen on HBO. If you're first timers, welcome. If you are second, third, or fourth timers, thank you for coming back. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So this is the 8th episode.
The penultimate episode
of,
as far as we know, the series, possibly just the season.
Yeah.
That's a whole other can of worms.
I just like to say penultimate. I don't get to say that.
It's a great word.
Often.
It's a great word
in my daily life.
I use it almost every day.
Yes. So we finally, it's Angela's mysterious past in Vietnam is at last revealed, is IMDb's description of the episode. It's a decent description, I suppose.
I guess. It's
really
not
more
really
about Dr. Manhattan. Yeah. The love story, I guess.
It's not Angela's mysterious past. It's the mysterious past of their relationship.
I will also say that IMDb had the episode title as A God Walks Into Abar. And the episode title... It looks
like in the show it was Abar.
Yeah, in the title sequence, Abar, like the last name of Angela. Mm-hmm. Clever little wordplay there.
Indeed.
Well done.
Yeah, like the creators of the show clearly like to mess with people's names and words and stuff like that. And that's nothing new. Like it was the same on Lost. You know, all the characters had like interesting names or names that said something about them.
And it's just a great name for an episode.
It is.
God Walks Into a Bar. So it starts with, we get the Watchmen boards in like a glowing light. Like
neon lights that go from yellow to blue, which I thought was cool.
Why blue though? Like where did the blue come from?
I feel like blue for some reason, and I can't pin down why, but there's something significant about the color blue in this show.
It was all over the episode.
I mean, yellow, I guess kinda. But blue, they really just like, and it has nothing to do with the comics or the character.
Hold on, I think I got it.
Oh?
Angela was a little depressed at certain parts of the episode. Perhaps she was
feeling blue. But now it all makes sense.
I mean, it's the only thing I can think of. Listeners at home, if you can figure out why blue would be a significant color for this episode.
I perceive all colors simultaneously, so I can't really tell what's blue and what's not.
And I don't see color. We've discussed this, that I'm colorblind. And I'm not entirely sure how colorblindness works. So we start out with Dr. Manhattan teleporting himself into Earth.
Yeah, I kind of wish I had mentioned it in previous episodes because, like, after the last episode ended, my thought for how, like, you see, next time on Watchmen, and they show like their little preview thing. Mm-hmm. My thought was that like the episode's probably going to open with like a flash of blue light, and then we're going to see Dr. Manhattan walk in the screen and pick up that mask, and that's exactly what happened.
Do you experience time simultaneously, past, present, future?
It depends on what substances I have enjoyed recently.
So yeah. Transports to Vietnam. They're celebrating
VVN Day. Yes.
I don't recall the what that stands for.
The abbreviation is?
I'm sure one of the V's is for Vietnam.
Vietnam Victory? No, I don't know.
We'll look it up.
Yeah.
By the way,
we should probably know that.
Just a sip. We just watched the episode, and we're giving our initial thoughts and reactions.
Yeah, so like our first gut responses to everything that happens in this show. And man, my gut is full to bursting.
My gut is tingling.
Your Joe tingle?
My Joe tingle. So stay tuned later in the week when we do a full in-depth analysis of the episode, a little more researched. This one is a more off-the-cuff and, instant gratification. Also, spoilers. There's plenty of spoilers.
Yeah, in case you like came onto the 8th episode of a podcast and are surprised that the show's being spoiled for you.
Mm-hmm. To be fair, it is called Watching Watchmen, so I think it's fair to assume that if you're listening to this, you're also watching Watchmen.
Or you want our opinion without knowing anything about the show, which is also a valid way to live your life. I don't judge.
Sure. Yeah, why not? Well, that's what we're here for. Walks into a bar and sits down next to Angela. Asks if he can sit down.
He grabs 2 beers
yes.
without seemingly paying for them. I don't know what kind of bar you can walk into, especially on what is apparently a national holiday, and just grab 2 beers and nobody's going to say anything.
Yes. Perhaps they had some sort of a promotion where you show up dressed as Dr. Manhattan and drinks are free for the night. We did see a rather portly fellow also dressed as Dr. Manhattan.
Yes.
Shirtless and all. Not quite the physique.
Not quite the form that Angela Abar would have chosen, I think.
Sure. And sits down next to Angela and they share some flirtation. Dr. Manhattan's way of flirting. Which,
despite, being open about his powers and how weird it all is, he's surprisingly good at kind of keeping her talking and making it interesting, and
he knows just what to say.
That's true.
And when to say it and how to say it.
Except in every other circumstance in his existence, basically. You'll be talking to him and he'll be like, "You're about to do that." And he'll be like, "Shut up, Dr. Manhattan. I know you perceive time simultaneously. You don't have to tell me the future."
Yeah. They totally nailed the Dr. Manhattan.
Oh my God. So nailed.
So similar to the comics, the way he jumped around. Even a lot of the way he phrases it is just straight out of the comics.
Yeah, you could read this episode basically as the whole thing. The beginning to end is from when he goes into the bar to when he leaves the bar, after having asked Angela out. And then all the stuff that happens in between is what he's experiencing sort of simultaneously.
Right.
We never actually see him as Cal in this episode, with that blind spot where his memories don't exist.
Yeah, good point.
So it's all the things that he perceives as happening as Dr. Manhattan.
And Angela mentions that he's supposed to be on Mars, and he says that Mars is just a recorded decoy.
Yeah, interesting.
He's not actually on Mars.
Just to keep people occupied. It keeps building castles and then destroying them.
Yeah. He's actually on Europa, both currently in Europa and currently there. He's multiple places at the same time.
So I loved how Angela asked him if this was a Zeus thing, because Zeus is known for, hopping on down to Earth and taking the form of an animal or something in order to get laid.
Yep.
I don't know why you would take the form of an animal to get laid, but I guess, different times back then.
You know what? It was effective. Can't argue with results.
Work. Europa is the name of one of the women Zeus appeared to as a bull, apparently. So
there you go.
I don't know what that says about the show.
You mess with the bull, but you get the horn. So he's simultaneously Europa and the bar, and he mentions that he teleported the manor to Europa.
Mm-hmm. Because it has sentimental value to him.
Then we get some flashback to the manor that we've been witnessing this whole season with Ozymandias.
Yes. And it's, flashback / simultaneous experience, whatever you want to call it. John Osterman as a child.
Should we call it a flash sideways? Would that be appropriate?
It's not technically a flash sideways because it does occur in the events. Never mind.
Whatever. Well, it's Dr. Manhattan memory.
Yeah.
Something.
So we see young John Osterman as a refugee from Germany to England, on his way to the good old US of A, living at the sort of the charity of this lord and lady of the manor who look strangely familiar.
Yeah, I could. Were they on Girls on HBO?
I never saw Girls.
Yeah.
I know that it had Kylo Ren in it.
It'll come to me. I'm sure I'll remember where I saw them before. Little John is exploring the manor, and he decides to hide in the wardrobe because he hears some adults coming.
He's hoping to find a lion, a witch, and a whole magical land inside the wardrobe. He finds another kind of magical experience in the wardrobe.
And he learns about the birds and the bees.
Yes, firsthand.
It's the bee's knees.
But so I feel like, call back to like the first episode when he and Angela are in the closet, like maybe had that informed his like sexual desires early on. Like, oh, I have like he wants to like relive that one moment when he first sort of saw it happening. So he always gets in a closet.
Sex with closets. Yeah. It's the only way.
It's a good thing he never went to Judd Crawford's closet that we know of.
Yeah. Might have been a pretty unfortunate experience for him.
So never mind. I'm about to go on a huge speculative, horrible thing.
Back on track. Let's not get derailed here, Jimmy. We don't do that here at Watching Watchmen.
Derailing Watchmen.
Different podcast. John gets to witness some lovemaking.
Mm-hmm.
Do we get the names of the couple?
I didn't catch it.
I didn't catch it either. We'll have to dig in. And then later they know that John caught them in the act, and they approach him and his father at a dinner table, and they want to see John alone and talk to his son, which it's completely reasonable
not
thing
creepy
to just
at all.
take your child in private.
Same time, they're letting you stay in their castle, protecting you from the Nazis. Yeah. So it's like, just have him home by dinner or whatever.
And then we get this.
They take him to a church.
Into the church.
Chapel.
I see some familiar stained glass windows that look like.
Indeed,
too.
Yes. I feel like those have been in Angela's eyes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In the courtroom where, on Europa. And they talk about God's will and the Bible. They hand him his very first copy of the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that John's learning about God and the Bible, and then he later becomes essentially a god.
And has sex.
He does, in a closet. It's all coming full circle. Cut back to the bar, and Angela's talking about how she hates Dr. Manhattan.
Why would she hate Dr. Manhattan?
I don't know. She doesn't like the color blue, probably. Doesn't like the cut of his jib.
Is he blue?
He you know what? Maybe that's why it was blue early. No, that's silly.
That is silly. So a lot of the song titles have blue in the name that we hear during this episode.
Yeah. We'll have a
Rhapsody in Blue or something like that.
Exhaustive list in our deep dive.
Add those to the playlist.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Episode kind of jumps all over the place. Then it shows Angela and Dr. Manhattan in kind of the morgue. Where there's all these recently deceased
because she has
bodies.
the idea.
She has the idea
that
right?
of him taking on a human form, but he doesn't tell her what the idea is so that it'll still be her idea, even though he tells her that she'll have the idea like 2 weeks from now. It's really interesting. It's got to be a weird way to have a relationship.
It's got to be for both parties, I would think. It's frustrating for Angela.
I bet Angela and Lori actually have a lot to talk about.
They probably could, yeah. Bond over that. But then also frustrating for Dr. Manhattan, being as powerful and all-knowing as he is, and he still can't manage to not piss off whoever he's dating.
Well, I think if you're all-powerful and have knowledge of the future and all these things, you kind of just try to enjoy these things as they are. Like, even the fights, like, it's going to happen. You might as well just kind of like accept that as part of the human trying to be human experience, There
you go. Just go with the flow.
Otherwise, what's he going to do? Be alone on Mars or on Europa or wherever in the universe? And, he's still a human, in the sense that he still has like human desires and needs. And the love of all these clones coming out of the lake, he says, is unsatisfying because they're just created for that purpose.
Right. Kind of goes back to the Bible where,
So, like, if the question why God gave humanity free will, it's because if they don't have free will, like the Crookshanks and Phillipses seem to not really have free will, then what value is being loved by such creatures
what's
like
the
that?
point of that? Yeah. He much prefers the love of Angela Abar.
Someone who can choose whether or not to be into him.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But yeah, the morgue. So we get basically confirmation that his form of Cal was a mortal, a human, prior to Dr. Manhattan assuming
and he's
his
got all
form.
the paperwork and stuff. So that kind of explains where we saw that medical report in Peteypedia, and it explains like his date of birth and history and stuff. And like, I felt like when I read that, like they couldn't have just like made all that up. Right. Like it would have been difficult at least to keep up that lie if they had to like come up with all these details that the doctors are going to ask. So, but you don't have to come up with the details if they exist for someone else.
Yeah. And the document also mentioned that he worked at the Pyramid Industries, I think. So
Pyramid
that was
Construction,
something like that. Yeah, a Vite company. Interesting.
Indeed.
Small world.
Wouldn't it be funny if he appears in Karnak and Adrian Veidt is like, "Oh, Cal Jahani from my construction company in Vietnam. What are you doing here?
Why are you naked?" And then we flash around back to them at the bar, and John's talking about how they have a 10-year relationship, but it ends with a tragic ending.
Which, like, you would think is a red flag, but he does bring a very good point later that, like, doesn't every relationship end in tragedy? Like, what is that Simpsons gag where, like, half of marriages end in divorce and the other half end in death?
Right, yeah. Pretty tragic when you think about it. Best case scenario. Boy, this is dark episode.
I mean, it's kind of a beautifully tragic episode, though,
Yeah. The Tunnel of Love by Doris Day.
Yeah. Apparently,
song Angel's never
favorite
heard of,
song.
but it's also her favorite.
Or I guess becomes her favorite
Grows
song.
on her, I guess, yeah.
As a result of their first date. I don't know. I guess that's something most humans experience is songs that become their favorite because of their romantic partner.
Sure. And such an appropriate title because we talk about the tunnel numerous times throughout the episode. How Calvin being in the when John takes Cal's form with the no memory. That's the tunnel of love.
Like, Angela even mentions at the end of the last episode, like, it's time to come out of the tunnel. And I thought that was an interesting line. Like, they must have mentioned a tunnel or something in the, previously in their relationship. So, or when they were doing this plan.
Just always talking about tunnels and quarks, I think, is a
quantum tunneling
dinner conversation.
Might explain how he's able to teleport.
Could.
Yeah.
I don't remember if we already got to it, but it is interesting. He talks about how he could theoretically transfer his powers to
that was a very obvious sort of like clue, I think. Yeah.
You think that's relevant? Should we pay attention to that, or should we just?
You know what? You're right.
Let
Never
that
mind.
one go. Yeah, forget that one. Out of mind.
I bet you the waffles he was preparing to make are going to be magic. Like,
had she eaten them, she'd be endowed with all the powers of Dr. Manhattan. And then we get to him. He alludes to the fight that they're going to have
6 months from now.
Yeah.
And then I do like one thing that they didn't really do, or I didn't feel like if they did it in the comic book, I didn't really pick up on it as much as how he has conversations sort of across timelines in a way, because everything's simultaneous. So he talks about how, he describes the fight he's having with her before they have it. And then while they're having the fight, he's talking about their first date. Like, so there's like information going both ways across time.
Sure.
Yeah. It's a really cool idea.
And that comes into play later when
definitely,
we'll talk about it.
Yep.
And then we get one of my favorite scenes where he transports to that Arctic looking area.
Yes.
What can you tell us about that, Jimmy?
That looked like Adrian Veidt's hideout, Karnak, in Antarctica. And it looks like Adrian has kind of let the place fall apart a bit, go to the elements. And he's just kind of in there in his bathrobe or something with half his TVs working. I don't know, stressing out, I guess, about the results of his his plan.
Looks like his plan didn't work out quite as he was hoping it would.
Yeah. Which is, like, what can you expect from someone like Adrian Veidt, He has this master scheme, and of course it's not going to, humans being humans,
Sure.
it's not going to happen exactly the way he foresaw or the way he wanted it to happen. But I do like how we see him producing the squid storm.
Yeah, right.
That was pretty cool. Just kind of like a nice little answer there for everybody. Like,
sure,
where are the squid's coming from? Well, it's Adrian. He's got like a glowing well of alien squids to teleport.
And I guess we could assume that after Robert Redford gets sworn in and sees the video of Adrian Veidt, perhaps they've taken over the squid attacks, and now they're in his absence. They're the ones who
that would make sense. Yeah.
Assume that.
Though, so he was still doing it in 2009, right? So. So
that would have been like 7 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either that or he automated it.
It's possible too. Yeah.
So I think either way, Robert Redford is probably in on it because of the video, as well as the 7th Cavalry.
I did love seeing his vivarium in Karnak.
Yeah, all kind of destroyed,
falling apart. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. After, I guess he never closed it back up after he
closed it back up.
Used it to kill. Like, why not? Like, why just let it go to waste?
Yeah.
He kills all these people with poison and then is like, open up the chamber, destroy the jungle. I mean, I guess that's symbolic, right?
I think symbolism was the driving force there. Yeah. When you mentioned the squid, I love the quote. He's maintaining world peace one cephalopod at a time.
Yep.
He talks, Ozzy says, Dr. Manhattan shows up and he's surprised that Ozzy knew who he was because he's not in his blue form.
Yeah.
But he's a very...
Somebody shows up naked at Antarctica and is saying like, hello, Adrian.
You can assume.
It's Dr. Manhattan, especially if he's like, tall, bald, perfect physical specimen.
Sure, yeah. We find out that it's been 24 years since they last talked. And Ozzy knew that Dr. Manhattan was on Europa, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, so I'm guessing...
A elephant told him, he said.
Yeah, yes.
Who could this little elephant be?
Lady True must have figured it out somehow, or... so at this point, like, when did she acquire his companies? I think there's mention of it happening in like 07, but then he disappears or he's last seen in like 2012, I think. So this has got to be a few years into Angela and John. Well, no, it's 6 months after. So it's 2009 plus 6 months, right? Because they have their fight. He mentions it's 6 months from the first date. And then he teleports to Karnak to talk to Adrian. And then figures out this whole memory wipe device thing. So that's when Adrian actually disappeared. Because he just teleports him straight to Europa.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to work on the timeline here.
Yeah,
we're gonna
timelines. Yeah, there's a lot of details, a lot of little, and we also have to take into the fact that the things in PD and stuff might not be reliable as narrators,
sure,
because it's from like the New Frontiersman or whatever.
Sure. I love the line. You have a profound lack of imagination. Dr. Manhattan was talking about how he couldn't figure out a way to be with Angela, basically, because, he's Dr. Manhattan. He can see everything all at once. And, of course, Ozzy's got a solution for him.
I do like he laughs in both of those occasions.
That was great.
At the irony of first being told he has great imagination with the knowledge that he'll later be told that he has terrible imagination. And then the reverse happening and he laughs in both. Dr. Manhattan is capable of understanding humor in a way that not everyone else is.
Which is funny because then Lori also mentioned in a previous episode how he never had a sense of humor.
Ah, that's a good point.
The booth. And then Cal's predicament of wanting to be with Angela but not being able to, and is the way he is. Ozzy has a plan. It was Plan A. And
I like how Ozzy basically puts all this together himself. Like he doesn't have to be told by Dr. Manhattan.
He's the world's smartest man.
Yeah, he's like first he guesses that it's because of a woman that he's here. And then he's like, he like tries to get it whether or not she knows that he's Dr. Manhattan because he's in disguise, you know? He's like, he assumes that she doesn't know. When John says that he does know, Ozzy's like, but you want to be able to live with her as a human being.
Sure.
You know, experience, you know, rejoin the human race. So I kind of mentioned this a little bit last week, how if the show is sort of reversing everything that happens in the comics he becomes less and less human, and in the show he's becoming more and more human.
Certainly seems that way. Yeah. I like that. And so Ozzy this was an alternate plan. In the comics, we see that he tries to kind of destroy Dr. Manhattan in I don't know if it was an intrinsic field subtractor. Yes, of course.
You fool.
Which lasted momentarily because, of course, Dr. Manhattan can simply reassemble himself.
Yes.
But that was plan B. Plan A was for amnesia.
I do like the whole, I built it 30 years ago.
Yeah, I love that.
Alluding to I triggered it 35 minutes ago. Yeah.
That was great.
Pretty good.
I also love that this kind of, the series has here and there felt like it picks up some of the storylines, but this felt like a direct sequel to the graphic novel, because you're seeing Adrian and Karnak and Dr. Manhattan, and they're just talking about old times.
Old times, yep.
Yeah, that's great. And Ozzy's got the implant, whatever that implant is, something with tachyons.
Yeah, he irradiated it with tachyonic nonsense.
Yeah, John did not know what was inside of it.
Technobabble, so he cannot see the future.
And then, of course, in exchange for helping Dr. Manhattan, Ozzy wants something in exchange.
So just go to Europa.
Go to Europa. Yeah.
So
right.
I feel like he just kind of like teleported him straight there, and that was it.
Yeah.
But the clones kind of make it seem like there's more to the story. Like there's terms of his imprisonment.
Sure.
And like there's a whole, like maybe the clones kind of assumed that was the case, or because like, well,
we did hear that Dr. Manhattan is both on Europa and on Earth simultaneously. So perhaps Dr. Manhattan was there when he teleported.
Everywhere he's ever been simultaneously.
Sure. But maybe there's a version of Dr. Manhattan on Europa for orientation once Ozzy gets transported over there.
Or maybe Ozzy sort of made his own orientation. He's like, I am your master. I am Adrian Veidt, and I'm here for you to worship me because you need something like that.
Yeah.
And so they're all like, oh, Q. And so they're attached to him. They don't want him to leave because they have infinite love to give.
They do. They're just looking for someone to give them that love.
In all the wrong places.
Let's see. And then Angela. So then, he goes back to Angela with the implants and instructs her to put on his forehead. He'll become temporarily intangible. Yeah. Make sure you get your hand out of there quickly enough.
It's like stuck. Oh fuck. Oh fuck. What happens then if her finger like got stuck? Would she just have to kill him so he turns into Dr. Manhattan again and then fixes her finger, and then they're like, okay, we'll try it again. Round 2.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. You can't. What's the expression? You can't do something without breaking a couple eggs.
Can't make an omelet.
That's it.
So eggs. The egg theme comes full circle in this episode.
We see more eggs. Yes.
One egg in particular he creates out of nothing.
Creates life.
Technically, in the form of an egg. It's like the least impressive use of divine powers ever to do sleight of hand.
I love the which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah, so that's really cool because he mentions throughout this episode paradoxes like 6 times or something. There's the chicken before the egg thing. There's like a reference to the grandfather paradox because he like visits her grandfather, Hooded Justice, and then there's like a causal sort of confusion. Like Angel's like, did I cause all this? Blah, blah, blah. And so paradoxes are kind of and you can't talk about Dr. Manhattan without talking about the possibility of a paradox arising. Like, why can't you change the future?
Right.
If you're all powerful and all knowing. And there's a paradox for you.
That's true. Now, do you think, Dr. Manhattan is capable of many things? Do you think he could create a burrito so hot that even he himself can't eat it?
Probably. I think he could make a burrito so hot that it would just like vaporize contact with physical matter. And if he's in like Cal Abar form, why not? He could be vaporized and he'll just put himself back together, but it would still be difficult to eat that burrito.
There you have it.
But then he could also just be in his indestructible form and just eat the burrito and it'd be fine. Like he walked on the sun, So
Paradoxes. Riddled with them. Keep losing my place here. Then we talked about they're at the bar and he creates life to kind of prove to Angela. She's a little skeptical. She's a doubting Thomas, if you will.
Wouldn't be? I mean, everybody's cosplaying as Dr. Manhattan.
That's true.
And this guy comes in who says he is Dr. Manhattan, but he knows all this creepy stuff about you. Yeah, why wouldn't you be skeptical? Dubious, as he calls it.
Dubious.
Several times throughout the episode.
Yeah. I'm dubious.
Are you?
I think.
You saw the episode, right?
Yes.
You saw him turn blue and glow and blow stuff up.
I'm almost fully convinced.
I mean, it was on television. It had to happen. It's true, Joe.
Well, that's true.
How can you doubt something like that?
Then we cut to the scene of her inserting the ring. And then
so their engagement, so to speak.
He gets down on one knee. That was nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a very different sort of context for
a ring.
The idea of engagement. Yeah, because like he's literally becoming somebody else in a way so that they can be together.
With a finite timeline for their relationship. 10 years.
I mean, every relationship has a timeline, right?
But you don't necessarily know.
True. But 10 years is a pretty good span, isn't it?
I'd say so.
And she says, she even says like she's still young then. She could find somebody else.
I love that he keeps walking on water throughout the episode.
Indeed. When he's creating his utopia on Europatopia.
That's great. I like that.
The swimming pool. He says he needs her to see him walking on water. What's that all about? He needs her to see him
doubting Thomas
doing some Jesus stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe he's going to sacrifice himself.
I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he multiplied loaves and fish as well. Did you see that? Was I watching a different show?
He did? I missed that. Why wouldn't he just like create waffles from like the air? Why go through the process of telekinetically cooking them?
Yeah, I liked that though. That was pretty awesome.
It was cool. I guess you do it because it's cool.
Good visual effect.
Like snapping your fingers and waffles appearing is less cool, I think, than floating the milk and the eggs around you.
Yeah.
Having them combine into waffles.
I appreciated that. I liked it a lot. We get the flashback to Angela and Cal, or flash forward, somewhere flash. And John, so this is, I think, when we're back at present day. Are we there yet?
When he wakes up?
Okay, well, yeah, cut to present day with John, and he sees that the clock is damaged.
Yes, when he goes full Dr. Manhattan in the house.
Okay, so I think we got to the part where she extracted the ring.
Yeah, so then we see him floating like he wasn't when he first materialized in the comic book, sort of, and then gently lands, and she's like, John, are you with me? Like, what's going on? You're not really talking much.
Saying a whole lot, so, yeah.
Well, he was a little confused.
Made me a little nervous.
He did just get his head bashed in with a hammer.
True. But he's Dr. Manhattan. Notices the clock is damaged, and he asks why it's not working properly, and she said, don't you remember?
Yeah, and then he does remember. That gives us that little, that answers what happened on the White Knight. At least. We had theorized about that
3 years ago.
Yeah. 3 years prior. So yeah, apparently somebody had shot one of the, cavalry members did shoot him and his powers activated and he vaporized the second dude. Apparently vaporized him completely because nobody knew that there was even a second shooter. So,
nice. Yeah.
And I suspect, I theorize that is also the significant thing that happened that Jane referred to in the last episode. Yeah, that something extraordinary happened.
I would tend to agree.
And then all of a sudden everybody realizes maybe there's like a detector, like a scanner somewhere. And like as soon as he used his powers, there's like a blip.
A blip?
Yeah, everybody's like, oh shit, there's a blip in a Dr. Manhattan blip in Tulsa. Like his radiation is detectable, Same
sort of blip that, let's say, an island would make when it relocates itself.
Ooh. That doesn't sound like Watchmen. It seems like something Damon Lindelof would do, though.
Yeah. I'm a little lost right now. Back to watching Watchmen. But yeah, so you would think that you would get that clock replaced or fixed. That seems like it would be a pretty
Well, they did fix it
terrible reminder
because
just wasn't fixed to John's satisfaction. Is that what he was getting at?
In the second episode, it's working. Like we see that it's working. Like they show us the flashback to White Knight when it gets destroyed, and then like later that same episode, they show us that the clock is functioning. So he sees that it's damaged, but it's still working, I assume. So yeah, I mean, they went out of their way to show us that it's working before. So I guess maybe that's kind of a clue too. Maybe he fixed it as the son of a watchmaker. But now he's like, oh yeah, when I was in the tunnel, someone shot the clock with a shotgun. And now it's all coming back to me.
And yeah, he could just snap his fingers and then he'd have like a blue glowing perfect clock.
He'd make one out of glass that was floating.
Ooh, there you go.
Yeah, that'd be cool. So did you know that in the Zack Snyder movie, to derail a little bit, the CGI glass structure he builds on Mars is a functioning clock? Like it kind of goes in time and, tells, it's like really complicated, but
Nice.
Yeah. I'd heard that somewhere and I thought that was pretty cool. Cool detail.
Was that not directly taken from the comics?
I don't think so. I think it's really just kind of a palace in the comics that he flies around.
I was talking about how his castle on Mars. Did you ever watch Frozen?
No.
We're going to spoil Frozen here. But Elsa basically builds an ice castle.
Of course, because if you have ice powers.
Because she has ice powers. Yeah. And I'm thinking it was probably inspired by Dr. Manhattan. Yeah. Probably.
She's like, oh man.
She's also wearing blue.
Isn't she from the past? Like, she's like, oh, in 1985, there will be a graphic novel in which someone with knowledge of the future.
Something like that, probably.
And superpowers makes a castle.
And then we see Dr. Manhattan going to Nelson Gardner's old home.
Mansion, yes. Which, as we learned from Peteypedia, was bequeathed unto Hooded Justice, Will Reeves.
There was in Will Reeves.
Yes, so he did wind up getting the inheritance. We know that for sure.
Yep.
He was living there for at least a period.
He just seems like an angry man. Have we ever talked about Will Reeves' anger?
Can you blame him? I mean... but yeah, so this scene is actually really interesting because, going back to the grandfather paradox, like it's almost like he doesn't really approach Will Reeves for any real reason except that he's kind of supposed to.
Yeah.
Because of the things he learned in the future. So, he only goes to the house because it's going to happen. He talks to Will Reeves because it's going to happen. And then he asks Angela the question that she asks him, 10 some years later, not quite 10 years later, and then starts this whole thing,
right?
Gets Judd Crawford killed because of this. Like, Hooded Justice would never have done any of this if not for that one question. And then it immediately occurs to Angela. She's like, oh shit. I just became the architect of my own demise.
Yeah.
Time travel, yo.
Mind bottling. What was that from?
It's from that Will Ferrell movie where he's a figure skater with Napoleon Dynamite.
Yes, Blades of Glory.
We're spoiling Blades of Glory.
Spoiling that as well.
There's one joke in which Will Ferrell says the word mind bottling. It's not even a good joke, really.
But I knew back then, I saw Time simultaneously. Something. I
suppose if you experience time like that, you could correlate a lot of things and make jokes that are hilarious that nobody else would get.
That's like 90% of my life, making hilarious jokes that no one appreciates except myself.
You'll get it in 15 years. Don't worry.
We find out that Will didn't know about Angela. He didn't know he had a granddaughter.
Well, why would he?
Right, exactly. And yeah,
I do like how when Dr. Manhattan lays that out for him, he's like, you had a son and he had a daughter and that would make her your granddaughter. He's like, oh, that's how that works. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Doc.
Right. So yeah.
Lou Gossett Jr.
Will Reeves living the the good life in this mansion and what part of some nice place.
It was in New York, wasn't it? Yeah, I think so.
Owning the theater in Harlem.
Yeah.
Playing Sister Night every
Sunday night. Yep.
But I think it was started once she became Sister Night. So I guess she's not Sister Night yet. So he's not playing it yet.
Yeah, so I guess
he just owns the theater.
After Dr. Manhattan reveals the existence of his granddaughter, he starts like keeping an eye on her or whatever and finds out she's a superhero.
Yeah.
Does Dr. Manhattan? Yeah, he mentions that she's a cop in Tulsa. He tells him that she's a police officer. And so once White Knight happens,
sure.
You could put them together, put the pieces together that, that's Sister Night. And so start showing the movie.
Oh, man. It's all coming together, Jimmy. All the pieces of the puzzle.
I would hope so, because it's a complicated show.
It's the penultimate episode.
You want it to come together by the finale, right?
I would hope so. What else? Asks Hooded Justice if he knew about Judd Crawford, or how he knew Judd Crawford was the head of Cyclops. And about
this is how you just told me.
This is how.
Like, for somebody who does that to people all the time, like, you're about to tell me, like, I know this because you're going to tell me 20 minutes from now.
Sure.
He totally just didn't pick up on the fact that he did that. He was on the other end of that, you know, like Hooded Justice is like, I didn't know I have a granddaughter, but now I do because you just told me. Like,
spoiler alert,
right,
John. And then the great chicken or the egg line,
right?
And what else?
So I guess when he comes to, he's kind of getting a sense for everything that's happening. Like, he says he's confused, right, as to when exactly he is, but he knows everything that's going to happen.
Yeah. He
knows, like, this is the moment that he fell in love with Angela, was when she was going to fight to save him, even though it was impossible.
Yeah.
Isn't it like kind of interesting how, so maybe Dr. Manhattan is sacrificing himself in this show, because if you're an all-powerful, omnipotent, being with knowledge of the future, wouldn't you isn't it more valuable for him to try and become human and wind up dying?
Jesus Christ, this is sounding like
with this
somebody familiar. Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ. Yes. Well, I mean, even separate from that, like, obviously that symbolism is there intentionally.
Sure.
But so why wouldn't it be better for him to come to Earth, have a relationship with Angela that he knows is going to end with his own death, because then he gets to experience that, and it gets, then it gets to be over.
Sure.
As opposed to living forever, creating black holes or blowing up planets or making living things that you think are better. One has more value than the other, it seems like, Are
you suggesting that he's willingly accepting his death?
Absolutely.
That he could avoid it if he wanted to?
I mean, no, because from his perspective, I don't think he can avoid it, but that doesn't mean he's not sort of choosing it.
Sure.
Because whatever's going to happen is going to happen from his perspective. He has no, he can't change events, but he still has choices in a way, because if he chooses, this sequence of events, then it's the one that will happen. It's the choice he will make. And he might have reasons for choosing it, but it's just as inevitable because it's what happens. If that makes any sense, I don't know. I don't know if I'm just rambling.
Perhaps, but I mean,
that's what we do here.
It's a very confusing show, jumping all over the place.
I am really digging it, though.
So good. So we see Dr. Manhattan in all of his blue glory, and he knows that the 7th Cavalry is waiting outside of their home
with a tachyonic cannon.
As they
How
do.
Cool is that?
Yeah, right. Angela, and she goes to the secret gun stash behind the painting.
Yes. Did you notice what kind of painting that was? Because I did not.
It looked. I don't know if it was anything super significant.
Wasn't like a black horse or something? I think
it was just like an abstract painting, but we'll have to analyze that one. It's a little freeze frame.
Indeed. We'll come back to you on that later with our full episode.
Full episode.
Right now, it's just a sip.
Just a sip. Speaking of, I'm going to have
just a sip. Ooh. What are we having a sip of today, Joseph?
This is some Japanese whiskey. Suntory whiskey.
Toki. Very good stuff.
Yes. A belated birthday gift to our good host, Jimbob.
Jimbob. That's me.
Just about 6 months late, but happy birthday, Jimmy.
I perceive like every day is really my birthday because I perceive time simultaneously. So, yeah, no biggie.
I think that's the alcohol. You should probably stop drinking so much. Cheers. So yes, Dr. Manhattan walking on water.
Yeah, he tells Angela that she needs to see him walking on water.
Not sure why.
So Angela goes and tries to take on the entire 7th Cavalry herself, and they brought backup, it looks like.
She did all right for herself.
Indeed.
She took out a good number of these guys.
But she was definitely going to be boned.
She was outgunned.
Until that dude's head mysteriously exploded.
Yeah.
And we get this really cool scene, like everything that like, you know, the comic book hero action fan in me like wants to see is Dr. Manhattan just using his powers for cool stuff
to disintegrate.
So yeah, he blows up people's heads. He stops bullets in the air. It's awesome.
It was great, which begs the question, why couldn't he just escape this situation?
Because he chose it.
He did choose it.
Yeah.
So he wants out. He doesn't want to live forever.
And if you're gonna want out, why not have like a meaningful ending, right?
Yeah, maybe he sees this as a meaningful way to exit. Yeah, like you were just saying. Yeah.
So, what do you think he's going to use to give Angela power? You think he's going to give Angela powers?
Certainly seems like someone is going to be inheriting the powers.
Hope it's not Joe Keane. That guy's a douche.
He better not. That guy's terrible.
Senator Prettyface or whatever.
Yeah. Anything else?
I
mean, obviously, then there's the after the credits.
I mean, yeah. So,
by the way, I hope everybody stayed tuned for the post credits scene.
They're going the Marvel route and having a post credit scene. And this is where we get our Ozymandias chapter for this episode. And we find out he is being punished. All his servants are like smashing tomatoes on his face.
Yes. As he's strung up on almost like a cross.
Oh, right? My God. I just figured it out.
Yes.
So in the beginning of the episode, Angela asks him if he can transfer his powers to someone else. And he says he could, imbue organic matter with his power. So if they consume it, they would, get his powers. Like, obvious sort of religious symbolism to like the Eucharist,
Yes.
But we've been seeing ingredients for food like this whole show, right? Lettuce, tomatoes, eggs.
Bacon in the form of pigs in the courtroom.
There is going to be a magic sandwich.
Or salad.
It's a sandwich. That's my new decision.
We're back on the sandwich or on the sandwich.
Well, so Red Scare last episode was eating a sandwich. And in previous episodes,
times he's been eating
Red
sandwiches.
Scare is going to be the one to be the new Dr. Manhattan by eating a sandwich.
Christ.
And he's going to enforce a communist utopia on the world with Dr. Manhattan powers. You heard it here first.
Heard it here, folks. Spoilers abound. Yeah, we get a scene of Ozymandias getting tomatoes continuously smashed in his face.
And they ask him if he's going to stay. And every time he says no. So, since they need him, they're the ones with this emotional dependence on having someone to worship. And they're asking him if he'll give that to them. And he says no, because probably for the same reason John didn't want to stay there. Like their love is not worth all that much because they are incapable of anything else.
Yeah. Kind of makes you, put yourself in their shoes. Your God has abandoned you. And now your other God.
In a way, aren't we in their shoes?
I want to just smash tomatoes in someone's face.
Jeremy Irons' face.
Probably.
He's a great actor.
They did a great job of like digitally de-aging him for the flashback.
Did they? I didn't even notice. So maybe that's why they did a great job. Yeah, I didn't notice it actually.
Yeah, it was pretty seamless, pretty good.
His hair was different, I think. A little blonder.
Yeah. Less gray. Yeah. We find out that the game warden was the first.
He was Adam, so to speak. Yeah.
Adam. He was there when Dr. Manhattan created all the life, so he witnessed all of it. We had talked in a previous episode if he was kind of a unique situation, and I think we got some answers on that.
So who's the original Crookshanks then?
It's a great question. She's been burned.
Where's Eve? Yeah.
She's dead. She'd had a long time ago.
No, I think that's a good point. Good question.
If we ever see a Crookshanks wearing a mask, I think we can assume that that's probably the first.
There you go. It's also interesting how we finally get the resolution on the horseshoe situation. Mr. Phillips handed him a horseshoe with his cake. And last time Ozzy found a horseshoe in Mr. Phillips's hand with the corpse in that one episode. He says, I don't need it yet. Like, I kind of feel like he might have been like, as part of his grand plan for escape, he ordered his servants to not only give him a cake on every anniversary, but also to include a horseshoe with it somehow. Yeah. And so finally that kind of occurred. Like on the 7th anniversary, his cake contains a horseshoe, which he then, is ecstatic about and uses to try and escape his jail cell. Yes. Raises questions too. Like, does he have some sort of foresight? Did he know? I think it's just that he's Ozymandias and he's that smart. Like, yeah, always. I think he knew he was going to be put on trial for trying to escape. I think he knew that they were going to punish him. True. And I think he knew that he would need some way out, something in his back pocket. Yeah. Which is, I think, why the prosecutor during his trial winked at him. Yeah. I think there's a plan, there's a plot in motion here. It's quite possible. I mean, if you're the world's smartest man and you're just living amongst these simple-minded creations, you'd think that you could just run circles around them. And right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. So now we just got to see how he actually escapes. Dan Dreiberg descends from the sky. Save me. He now has Dr. Manhattan powers. Ooh. Because he's been running a side hustle, doing the whole 7K scheme, but better. Because he has his own technology. While in FBI custody, or is that just a bunch of... Sure. Is that also just some footage of him? Yeah, that's a hologram. And it's an automaton he built. I mean, if anybody could do it, he's got the resources, probably. This is maybe. So that's the episode. This is Just a Sip. Stay tuned later in the week. We'll watch it a few more times. You can. I certainly will. I'm going to say that every time. I know you will. I know you're going to. You watch it. You just don't admit it. We all know you watch it. I watch it every day on repeat. Nonstop. It's running in my house very loudly. Overall, it was very satisfying seeing Dr. Manhattan in all of his glory. Yeah. So everybody's kind of been theorizing on the internet and stuff like Cal's probably Dr. Manhattan or so-and-so is Dr. Manhattan, going on and on and on. Everybody's got all the clues line up. And I'm here sure, yeah, Cal could be Dr. Manhattan, but that's not as interesting to me, predicting that until I understand why he's Dr. Manhattan. Yeah. This episode was just a super satisfying and still so surprising to me way in which to pull that off. So I was very pleased. I just blew myself. There's got to be a better way to say that. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy this podcast, the best way to support us is to subscribe if you haven't already done so. Indeed. Leave us a review on whatever podcast platform you use. Let us know how we're doing. We appreciate feedback. 5 stars are preferred. 4.5 if you must. For the sake of Joe's ego, 5 stars are preferred, please. I'm a very fragile person. You don't know what he does when he gets a bad review.
You can find us online at theonedrinkin.com. Also, theonedrinkin@gmail.com. You can reach out and give us your thoughts.
That has links to all our socials, our Twitter, our Instagram.
Not our social security numbers. I have not made those public. You guys should. Okay.
Yours is out there.
Just jump on the website. You'll see our social security numbers, birthdays, and a list of our fears. We've also, if you are feeling especially generous, we've set up a Patreon account, primarily because we want to provide the best listening experience to our listeners.
Absolutely. And so that'll help us be able to produce more content. If you happen to like the content we make, we're not going to stop now or ever.
Yes.
So
I mean, we might. Yeah, we're never going to stop.
We will never stop.
Can't stop, won't stop.
Don't wanna. We'll be the last two people on Earth. It'll be a frozen wasteland, and we'll be transmitting this podcast. If there's anyone out there who can hear us, this has been Watching Watchmen. We're One Drinkin.
Patreon.com/onedrinkin. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you in a few days.
One Drink In, out.